Hello there. It's about 20 minutes before midday on the 4th of May 2021, and I wanted to talk about an experience I've had today. No beating about the bush. I had a very short, sharp revisitation of the anxiety that has plagued my life in the domestic situation I moved from 2 weeks ago today. Now, today's the day, and I knew it was coming, that my room that I rented was being inspected by the agency, the housing agent. And I left the place with blue tack marks on the wall, nothing, nothing severe. I know that the carpet was going to need replacing anyway. I stepped back from them doing it while I was there because I didn't want the hassle with the amount of possessions I'd accumulated to have to move it all in, move it all out. And they said, well, when you move on, first thing we'll do. And they tended to redecorate each and every room as and when a tenant leaves. I've got a £320 deposit within that house, so I do have a vested interest in keeping the lines of communication open. But anyway, 11 a.m. this morning, just before, my phone rang and it had landlord written on it, and that's the name for the agency. The landlord is a completely different entity, person in their own right. And I just couldn't face it. The room isn't in the best of states of repair, but I've had 12 months where people I shared with's behaviour has relegated me to being unable to use the living room, the kitchen, and I've had on every occasion I've used it, had to use antibacterial sprays to even use the bathroom, which is something you can't avoid using. I mean, up to a certain point, you can't avoid using it. Being a man, I was able to have a 2 litre bottle to urinate in. Sorry to be so disgusting, but that is just the cold, harsh truth of it. I'm not particularly proud of that, but I was made a prisoner in my own home by people bringing people home during a pandemic. People are in their 20s and haven't got the concerns that somebody over 50 has with regards to a chronic respiratory disease that's doing the rounds. And presently in India, 400,000 people a day are being diagnosed afresh with this disease. There's a lot of naysayers out there who think it's all a complete conspiracy and a hoax, but it quite simply isn't. I have friends and relatives who work within the health service in the UK, and they'll soon tell you what the truth is of this last year in their job in the NHS with regards to COVID-19. It's been a nightmare. But yeah, I was relegated to my room. My fridge was a carrier bag hanging outside my window. As I say, I urinated in a bottle as much as possible to avoid, in all honesty, to avoid each and every time I went to the toilet having to use these antibacterial sprays, because there was a large turnover of people coming in and out of the house. One guy I lived with, who's a hairdresser, actually started conducting occasional business deals with regards to doing people's hair in our downstairs sort of utility area near the back door. You know, I'm not being overly sensitive with regards to my wanting to avoid, as per the World Health Organization, the government, and every rational and sane doctor's advice under the sun. Don't have people round to your house. You know, let's face it, to have parties, as I had to deal with on at least 4 or 5 occasions, definitely, in that house. £10,000 fine for organising and £5,000 for attending. You know, it speaks for itself, the severity of what led me to become a prisoner in that room. And naturally, cleanliness suffered. You know, I noticed when I took my posters off the walls were quite black where the posters had been. I mean, that's kind of natural wear and tear. You know, whenever we do the redecorating in a house, we've all done it. We put that first swipe of white over what we thought was white, and we find out indeed that it's completely yellow. You know, you don't have to be a smoker or anything like that. There is a natural deterioration just through day-to-day usage that makes places lose their sheen and take on a slightly, you know, we have a corrupted idea. It was white when it went on, so we'd still describe it as white. When we see true white, we realise it's anything but But yeah, I had these 2 or 3 phone calls this morning that I had to ignore. But in the moment, I just thought this is back to how I felt on each and every day of the pandemic whilst living there. 13 months of waking up anxious, paranoid. What's going to happen today to jeopardize my ability to be in this area? As I've said before, my daughter, having her there every weekend was against council guidelines and rules, and it would be a fine for the landlord and instant dismissal for me. I'd have lost my house, and it was a constant worry. Every plan that I had to move away and get a flat with someone else, sadly those plans died with an actual individual leaving this mortal realm. Their death had a profound effect on me, and I've been unable to work. The drugs that I'm taking to keep me from sleeping and to allow me to function in any sort of basic state of normality affect my sleeping patterns so chronically that I'm unable to work, and therefore moving house was a great difficulty. But luckily I had the National Health Service and my wonderful general practitioner on my side, and her interactions with the local council put me into band 2, which is very high priority with regards to finding a house. And she wrote a further letter basically saying, this guy needs intensive treatment for what he's been through. Please get him sorted out, because there's no point us helping him, and we can't help him until he's not in the environment that's holding him back. And within 2 weeks of that letter arriving at the council's doorstep or in their inbox on their computer, I was offered this place, and things have been instantly better. And today offered me a little snapshot of how each and every morning felt for me, waking up in that level of anxiety. And I've got a friend from my old stomping ground down in Kent who had a stroke as a very young man through the stresses that were affecting him within a very, very bad relationship that he was in. That, in all honesty, he was the victim of the piece. He'd always say he was no angel, but he was definitely the victim of the piece. And I'm at an age where that level of stress, and what my friend told me about his experience of the way his body reacted to relentless stress, it was frightening. You become very aware of your mortality when you're 50 years old anyway. Having a 10-year-old daughter now, I think about my sort of allotted time, and I want as much as possible. And not only was that house affecting my ability to function as a productive human being in any way, shape or form, it was affecting my relationship with my daughter, because I was constantly on the defensive of, don't make noise, don't do this, don't do that, no, you can't use the kitchen, I will go and use the kitchen, because I feared her using utensils and literally picking something up, a disease, of varying kinds, not just the worst that we know of in this moment. It was bad there. I've made peace with one of the people who lived there, and I've got a lot of time for her. She's, it's not all bad, just young people caught up in a situation where I probably have acted completely the same. I'm not going to play the victim completely here, but I'm just trying to say, as a sort of end game to this particular video, is that I couldn't face speaking to my landlord, the housing agent. Now that doesn't matter. In the grand scheme of things, it really isn't important. But anxiety has a snowball effect that we all need to be aware of. Depression and anxiety and all sorts of mental health issues where we let one thing slip, that phone call where we need to sort that bill out. This phone call gets ignored because we can't cope with it in the moment. And before we know it, we've got debt agencies after us because we owe this for the water, this for the gas, this for the electricity, and not necessarily always down to the fact that we couldn't pay it. It's the fact that we can't face the pressure that is being ladled upon us as an individual, and it goes past the realms of our abilities in that moment. And I thought about that this morning. I'm grateful that level of anxiety visited me. I can't say I'm feeling that good at this moment, because there, it is kind of hanging over my head slightly. But if this was a situation where I had a broken leg and I couldn't get there to deal with this today, no one would expect me to be there. No one. But mental health is such a still it's the light-hearted joker of the pack, isn't it, as far as illness goes? Because people can't see it, they don't take it seriously. I ignored that phone call today because I'm not well. And luckily, with the position I'm in, I do have people who are willing to advocate to a certain extent, or give me the slight nudge up that I need to get on with my life and not end up in the shit, to put it bluntly. But there are so many people out there who have just reached rock bottom with regards to their confidence levels, and allow things to just become slightly overgrown in the garden of their financial world, and before they know it, it's all caved in on them and they're on the streets. It is such an easy stepping stone from one to the other, from being relatively successful and balanced in life to just ending up on the street. It is so easy. And these issues need discussing. We need to start recognizing en masse that the mental inabilities and disabilities that sometimes befall us have a profound effect on our lives. And even if you've said to people, because everybody's in the know in my last house, that I've gone through personal hell, but today I know they won't be thinking, oh, well, he has been through a lot, and I can understand he probably just doesn't want to answer this phone call. It'll be, well, he always thought he was all right. It just shows, doesn't it? I've heard other phone calls from those people, and they're good folks, don't get me wrong, but just like with everybody else, people have got a very slow on the uptake attitude towards mental health issues, and it needs to change. I don't want to get out of jail free card, but I want the same understanding for me, for you, for everyone else with regards to mental health issues as a person with a plaster cast on their leg gets when they are disabled by their particular ailment that has befallen them. As I say, I'm grateful for that anxiety revisiting me just this once today, because it's reminded me how quickly just a change of scenery and being under my own roof, my very own roof, has healed me greatly, or it's healed me to the extent where I can start healing the other things. There was a healing process that needed to happen to actually start healing. I needed a completely neutral living space where I didn't have to think about anyone else except me and my daughter, to actually start going about the process of healing from everything that's happened in my life in the last half a decade. I don't deserve any special treatment, but the basics that are there and the respect that any kind of illness should immediately garner needs to be there by default. Never bargain with the word no. Never bargain with people trying to pressure you into doing things that you're incapable of because of an illness that's invisible and hasn't got physical form. It's just very easy to feel inadequate about what is a serious illness, but it doesn't have the same shape and form and outward visage of many other conditions. Anyway, love and sympathy to all who've ever faced anything like this, or if you face it in the future. God bless.